Before you scroll past this, let me ask you something. Have you ever done the right thing and still had the whole world hate you for it? Because that happened to me. 4 million people watched 10 seconds of my life and decided I was a monster. Not a bad neighbor, not a bad employee, a monster. And the worst part, for almost 2 years, I let them believe it. Because I thought nobody would care about the truth anyway. Tonight, I'm done staying quiet. If you've ever been judged for something before anyone bothered to ask you why, you need to watch this till the very end. Because I promise you, the ending is going to break something inside you, and then it's going to fix it. Stay with me. Same man, same night, same 10 minutes. And yet the whole town split right down the middle over who I really was. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just need someone to hear the whole thing before deciding what kind of man I am. It started with a phone call at 2:14 in the morning. I remember the exact time because some part of me already knew this call would change my life. It was my neighbor, screaming one word over and over. Fire, fire, fire. I ran outside in bare feet, in the middle of winter, and across the street I saw flames climbing the old apartment building like they were hunting something, and I knew exactly who lived on the 3rd floor. A little boy, 6 years old, home alone while his mother worked the night shift. What I did in the next 4 minutes is what the whole town saw on a shaky cell phone video. They saw me run into a burning building and come out carrying a man, not the boy, a grown man, unconscious. And instead of starting CPR right there on the lawn like every instinct screams you should, they saw me drop him, turn around, and run back into a building that was already collapsing. That video hit 4 million views in 3 days. Headlines called me a man who abandoned a dying neighbor. People I'd known my whole life stopped looking me in the eye. My own sister called and asked if it was true. Strangers found my workplace, my number, even my daughter's school. I got called a monster more times in 1 week than most people hear in a lifetime. But nobody, not one person, not one single reporter, ever asked me the question that mattered. They never asked me why. And that question, that one unanswered question, is exactly where this story really begins. 3 days before the fire, I found out something about that building that nobody else knew. Something that should have gotten it condemned 6 months earlier. And on the night everything burned, I wasn't just fighting flames. I was racing against a truth that was about to bury 3 more families under that same roof if I didn't do exactly what I did, in exactly that order, no matter how it looked to a camera that only caught 4 minutes out of the longest night of my life. Let me take you back further, because you need to understand who I was before any of this happened, so you can understand why I made the choice I made when the fire finally came. I was a maintenance worker, not glamorous, but I knew every pipe and wire in that building because I'd been fixing it for 6 years. 6 months before the fire, I found a gas line in the basement, old and rusted, patched together with tape that should have been replaced a decade ago. I reported it in writing to the landlord, the city inspector, even the fire department. Nothing happened. The landlord told me to stop scaring tenants. So I did what any powerless person does when the system ignores them. I kept a folder, dates, photos, every email, telling myself that at least there'd be proof I tried. I never imagined I'd need that folder to survive the night, not to protect myself, but to save the lives of the exact people the system had already failed once. The night of the fire, I didn't run in thinking about being a hero. I ran in thinking about that gas line, because I knew something the firefighters, still 4 minutes out, didn't know yet. If that fire reached the leak before someone shut it off, it wouldn't be a building fire anymore. It would be an explosion big enough to level half the block, with 3 other apartments full of Sleeping families who had no idea their walls were sitting on a bomb. Here's the truth I never got to say loud enough. I dropped that man because I'd already checked his pulse inside, and it was there. Faint, but there. I dropped him because two neighbors were already running toward him with their phones out. And I ran back inside because I was the only one on that street who knew where that gas valve was, with maybe 90 seconds before that leak met the flames. I found the valve in the dark, in smoke so thick I couldn't see my hands, crawling on a floor already giving way beneath me. I shut it off with fingers burned so badly I couldn't hold a coffee cup for 3 weeks after. Then, in the part the camera never caught, I climbed one more flight into smoke that should have killed me, and found that 6-year-old boy curled under his bed, exactly where no stranger would have thought to look. I carried him out through a stairwell that collapsed completely 11 minutes after we cleared it. 11 minutes. That's how close it was. None of that made it into the story, because a 10-second clip is easier to share than a 6-minute explanation of gas valves and hidden children. Rage travels faster than truth. It always has. And once that video hit the internet, the truth never stood a chance. For months after, I lost almost everything except the 2 lives I saved. I lost my job when the landlord needed a scapegoat once the gas violation came out. I lost friends who found it safer to distance themselves from a man the internet had already convicted. I lost sleep, weight, and some nights, the will to explain myself anymore, because it felt like screaming into a hurricane. But here's the part of this story I think about more than any other. About 4 months later, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. It was from the mother of that 6-year-old boy. She admitted that for one single day, she believed the same thing the whole internet believed, that I was the man who left someone to die. She had shared the video herself before she knew any better, and for a while she couldn't even say my name without her voice shaking. Then the fire department report came out. Then the gas company confirmed the leak, and slowly, piece by piece, she understood that the man the internet called a monster was the same man who crawled through fire he didn't have to enter, just to find her son exactly where he was hiding, in the one place a stranger would never have thought to look. She wrote one line in that letter that I have never been able to forget. She said, "You let the whole world call you a monster, so my son could keep calling me Mom." I read that line so many times the paper started to wear thin at the fold. I'm not telling you this story so you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this because I think about how fast we judge each other now, based on 10 seconds of footage, based on a headline written by someone who wasn't even there, based on outrage that feels satisfying in the moment, but is almost never the full truth. Somewhere out there, right now, someone else is being called a monster the same way I was. Someone is losing their job, their friends, their reputation, not because of what they actually did, but because of the 4 minutes someone happened to catch on camera, out of a story that actually took 6 months to build and one impossible night to finish. We forget that people are more than the worst-looking moment of their lives, and by the time the truth arrives, the damage has already been done, the friendship's already broken, the trust already gone. I'm not a hero. I don't want that word either. I was just a man who knew something other people didn't, who made a choice in the dark with burned hands and a body full of fear, and who has had to live with being called the wrong thing by people who never asked the right question. If there's one thing I'd want you to take from everything I just told you, it's this. Before you decide someone is a monster, ask why. Ask what happened in the minutes nobody filmed. Ask what that person knew that you didn't. Because sometimes the person the world is screaming at is the same person who just spent the worst night of their life trying to save it. I finally have my life back together. It took time, more time than I expected, but piece by piece, things came back. My hands healed, mostly, though I still can't hold a hot cup the same way. My daughter still asks me sometimes if I'm the fire guy from the news, and I tell her the truth, that I'm just her dad, who did what he had to do that night. Nothing more, nothing less. That little boy is 8 now. His mother still writes to me every year on the anniversary of that night, just to say thank you. And every letter reminds me why none of the noise from that first week actually mattered in the end. And every single time I read those letters, I remember something I now believe with my whole heart. Let them call me a monster. I know what I did in the dark. I know why I did it. And one day, when the truth finally caught up to the story, the same people who condemned me were the ones who went quiet, because deep down, they knew they judged too fast. If this story moved you even a little, I want you to do something for me. Hit subscribe, because there are more stories like this one, waiting to be told. Real stories about the people the world got wrong before it got them right. And down in the comments, I want you to tell me this. Have you ever been judged for something before anyone knew the full truth? Have you ever had to stay quiet while people decided who you were, based on 10 seconds instead of the whole story? Tell me. I read every single comment, and I promise you, your story matters just as much as mine. Because at the end of the day, we've all been misunderstood by someone who never bothered to ask why. And maybe, just maybe, if we start asking that question a little more often, before the world would still call people like me a monster, it might finally start calling us human.